Imagine a quiet school cafeteria erupting into chaos as a group of cruel bullies corner a lone black girl, their taunts echoing off the walls, until her father, a towering figure with a past that shakes the very ground he walks on, storms in to turn their world upside down. This gripping tale of justice, redemption, and unexpected twists will leave you breathless. Subscribe now to dive into stories that hit hard, spark change, and keep you hooked until the very last word. The fluorescent lights of Lincoln High's cafeteria buzzed faintly, casting a sterile glow over the chipped linoleum tables and the chatter of teenagers. It was a typical Tuesday lunch period in suburban Ohio, where cliques formed like islands in a sea of trays and backpacks. At the far end of the room, near the windows overlooking the football field, sat Amara Johnson, a 15-year-old sophomore with deep brown eyes and a quiet strength that went unnoticed by most. Her braided hair was pulled into a neat bun, and she wore a simple navy hoodie, her gaze fixed on the notebook in front of her, where she sketched intricate designs to escape the noise. Amara wasn't invisible. She was deliberately unseen, a skill she'd honed after years of navigating a school where she often felt like an outsider. Being one of the few black students in a predominantly white suburb came with its own set of challenges, but Amara had learned to keep her head down, her art close, and her dreams closer. Today, though, her solitude was shattered. A group of 4 juniors, led by Courtney Reynolds, a cheerleader with a sharp tongue and sharper ambition, had zeroed in on her. Courtney's blonde ponytail swung as she sauntered over, flanked by her usual crew. Jake, a lanky football player with a smirk that screamed entitlement. Mia, whose giggles masked a mean streak. And Tyler, the quiet one who followed orders but never led. They'd been picking at Amara for weeks, ever since she'd aced a history presentation that outshone Courtney's half-hearted effort. It wasn't just jealousy. Courtney thrived on power, and Amara's quiet confidence was a threat she couldn't ignore. "Drawing your little pictures again, huh?" Courtney's voice cut through the cafeteria din, loud enough to draw eyes. Amara didn't look up, her pencil moving steadily across the page. Courtney leaned over the table, her manicured nails tapping inches from Amara's notebook. "What's this? Another one of your weird doodles? You think you're some kind of artist?" The word artist dripped with mockery, and Jake snickered, leaning against a chair. Mia chimed in. "Maybe she's drawing her way out of here. You know, back to wherever she came from." Amara's hand froze, but only for a moment. She'd heard worse. Her family had moved to this town 3 years ago from Chicago, chasing a job opportunity for her dad, Marcus, and a better life for her and her younger brother, Eli. But better came with whispers, stares, and moments like this. She took a slow breath, her voice steady but low. "Just leave me alone, Courtney." The words were calm, but they carried an edge that made Tyler shift uncomfortably. Courtney's eyes narrowed. She thrived on reactions, and Amara's composure was like gasoline on her temper. "Oh, you're talking back now," she said, snatching the notebook from under Amara's hands. Before Amara could react, Courtney tore out a page, a detailed sketch of a cityscape Amara had spent weeks perfecting, and held it up. "Look at this. She thinks she's Picasso or something." The cafeteria erupted in laughter, and Amara's cheeks burned, not with shame, but with a quiet fury she'd learned to bury deep. Jake stepped forward, blocking Amara's path as she stood to grab her notebook. "Where you going? We're just having fun." He pushed her shoulder lightly, but it was enough to make her stumble back into her chair. The crowd around them grew, phones slipping out of pockets to record the scene. Mia egged Courtney on, and Tyler, though hesitant, didn't stop them. Amara's eyes darted to the cafeteria doors, but the teachers on lunch duty were nowhere in sight, distracted by a spill on the other side of the room. Courtney leaned in close, her voice a venomous whisper. "You don't belong here, Amara. Why don't you just go back to where you fit in? She crumpled the sketch and tossed it to the floor, stepping on it for good measure. The crowd's laughter grew louder, and Amara's hands clenched into fists under the table. She wanted to scream, to fight back, but she knew better. Fighting would only make it worse. Detention, suspension, her dad's disappointment. So she stayed silent, her eyes locked on the crumpled paper, her heart pounding with a mix of rage and helplessness. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, but Courtney wasn't done. "Let's make sure she remembers this," she said, nodding to Jake. He grabbed Amara's backpack, unzipped it, and dumped its contents onto the table. Pens, books, and a small photo of Amara with her dad and Eli spilling out. The photo landed face up, Marcus's broad smile and military posture staring up at the bullies. Courtney smirked. "Oh, cute family. Too bad they can't help you now." She kicked the backpack under the table, and the group sauntered off, leaving Amara to gather her things as the crowd dispersed, whispering and giggling. Amara knelt to pick up her belongings, her hands trembling. She smoothed out the crumpled sketch, her fingers lingering on the torn edges. She wasn't just angry, she was exhausted. Exhausted by the daily microaggressions, the assumptions, the isolation. But she wasn't broken. Not yet. She slipped the photo of her dad into her pocket, a small anchor to keep her steady. Marcus had always told her, "You're stronger than they know, Mara. Don't let them dim your light." She clung to those words as she headed to her next class, unaware that the events of the cafeteria had already set something unstoppable in motion. Across town, Marcus Johnson was finishing a shift at the auto shop he owned. At 42, he was a man of quiet intensity, 6'3", broad-shouldered, with a presence that commanded respect without demanding it. His hands, calloused from years of wrench-turning and harder times before that, moved with precision as he tightened a bolt on a customer's truck. Marcus had served 2 tours in the Marines, a fact he rarely mentioned, but carried in the way. He moved, alert and deliberate. He'd left the military to give Amara and Eli a stable life, but stability came at a cost in a town where his family stood out. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he wiped his hands on a rag before checking it. A text from an unknown number, followed by a video. Marcus's jaw tightened as he pressed play. The grainy footage showed the cafeteria scene, Courtney's taunts, Jake's shove, the laughter, Amara's silence. The video cut off just as the bell rang, but it was enough. Marcus's eyes darkened, not with anger, but with something deeper, a protective resolve that had been forged in deserts and battlefields. He didn't know who sent the video, but he recognized Amara's pain in an instant. He'd seen that look before, not on her face, but in the mirror years ago, when he was a kid fighting his own battles. Marcus grabbed his jacket and keys, his voice calm but firm as he told his assistant manager, "I'm out for the day." The drive to Lincoln High took 15 minutes, but to Marcus it felt like seconds. His mind raced, not with plans of confrontation, but with questions. Why hadn't Amara told him? How long had this been going on? He parked in the visitor lot, his truck's engine still ticking as he stepped out, his work boots heavy on the asphalt. The school loomed ahead, a squat brick building that looked deceptively peaceful under the afternoon sun. Inside, the hallways were quiet, classes in session. Marcus headed straight for the principal's office, his presence drawing curious glances from office staff. Principal Hargrove, a balding man in his 50s with a penchant for avoiding conflict, looked up from his paperwork, startled. "Mr. Johnson, what brings you here?" he asked, adjusting his glasses. Marcus didn't sit. "I need to see my daughter Amara. Now." His voice was low, controlled, but it carried a weight that made Hargrove's smile falter. Marcus slid his phone across the desk. The video paused on Courtney's smirking face. "This happened at lunch. I want to know why no one stopped it." Hargrove watched the video, his expression shifting from discomfort to defensiveness. "This is concerning, Mr. Johnson, but I assure you we have a zero-tolerance policy for bullying. I wasn't aware—" "You should have been," Marcus cut in, his tone sharp but not raised. "My daughter's been dealing with this and no one noticed. Where were the teachers, the cameras?" Hargrove stammered, promising to investigate, but Marcus wasn't here for promises. "I'm taking Amara home, and I want a meeting with the parents of those kids today." Hargrove nodded, already reaching for his phone to call the front desk. Marcus stepped into the hall, his eyes scanning for Amara's classroom. He didn't have to look far. She was in history, her last period of the day. When the secretary paged her, Amara appeared in the doorway, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her expression guarded. The moment she saw her dad, her eyes widened, a mix of relief and worry. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Marcus didn't answer right away. He pulled her into a brief, tight hug, his hand resting on her shoulder. "Saw what happened at lunch," he said quietly. "Why didn't you tell me?" Amara looked down, her fingers twisting the strap of her backpack. "I didn't want to make it a big deal. It's just how it is sometimes." Her voice was small, but Marcus heard the weight of it, the resignation, the hurt. He knelt slightly to meet her eyes. "It's not how it's gonna be, not anymore." Back in the principal's office, Hargrove had managed to contact the parents of Courtney, Jake, Mia, and Tyler. The meeting was set for after school, in the library. Marcus sat with Amara, his presence a steady anchor, as they waited. Amara fidgeted, her sketchbook clutched to her chest. "What's gonna happen?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're gonna learn," Marcus said simply, his eyes fixed on the door. "And you're gonna be okay." The library was a cavernous room with high ceilings and rows of books that smelled faintly of dust. The parents arrived one by one, each with a mix of concern and defensiveness. Courtney's mother, Diane Reynolds, was a polished woman in a blazer, her lips pursed, as if she'd already decided this was a misunderstanding. Jake's father, Tom, a burly contractor, looked annoyed at being pulled from work. Mia's parents, a nervous couple named Linda and Greg, seemed more embarrassed than anything. Tyler's mom, Susan, arrived alone, her expression unreadable. Hargrove started the meeting with a nervous preamble about school policies, but Marcus cut through the fluff. "My daughter was humiliated today, pushed, mocked, recorded. No one stepped in. I want to know what you're doing about it, and I want to hear from them." He nodded toward the 4 students who sat at a separate table, heads down. "Why they thought this was okay." Courtney rolled her eyes, but Jake shifted uncomfortably and Mia's face flushed. Tyler stared at the table, silent. Diane spoke first, her tone clipped. "I'm sure Courtney didn't mean any harm. Kids tease, Mr. Johnson. It's not personal." Marcus's gaze didn't waver. "It was personal to my daughter." He played the video again, the sound of Courtney's voice filling the room. Diane's confidence faltered, but she doubled down. "Courtney's under a lot of pressure, cheerleading college apps. She's not a bully." "Then why's she leading the pack?" Marcus asked, his voice calm but unyielding. Tom jumped in, defending Jake. "My son's a good kid. He just follows the crowd. You can't pin this on him." Linda and Greg mumbled something about Mia being influenced, but Susan, Tyler's mom, stayed quiet, her eyes on her son. Amara sat silently, her hands folded, but her eyes were on her dad. She'd never seen him like this. Calm, yes, but with a fire beneath it that made the room feel smaller. Hargrove tried to steer the conversation toward restorative justice, but Marcus wasn't here for buzzwords. "I want consequences," he said, "and I want them to understand what they did." The twist came when Tyler, the quiet one, spoke up. His voice was shaky, barely audible. "I didn't want to do it," he said, glancing at Courtney. "She told us to, said it'd be funny. I sent the video to you, Mr. Johnson." The room went silent. Courtney's head snapped up, her eyes wide with betrayal. "You what?" she hissed. Marcus nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. "Why'd you send it, Tyler?" Tyler swallowed hard. "Because it wasn't right. Amara didn't do anything to us. I couldn't stop it in the moment." Susan reached for her son's hand, her face a mix of pride and pain. The meeting unraveled from there. Courtney's mother tried to deflect, blaming Tyler for escalating things, but Hargrove, under Marcus's steady gaze, outlined suspensions for all 4 students. Courtney protested, claiming it would ruin her cheerleading season, but Marcus's voice cut through. "My daughter's been carrying this for weeks. You think a week off the squad compares?" As the meeting ended, Marcus took Amara's hand and led her out, but not before pausing by Courtney's chair. "You're not in charge here," he said quietly, his words more fact than threat. "Think about that next time." The fallout was swift. The suspensions hit, and the school launched an anti-bullying campaign, spurred by Marcus's insistence. But the real change came in Amara. She started sharing her art again, her sketches appearing in the school's spring showcase. Tyler, ostracized by Courtney's crew, found an unexpected ally in Amara, who forgave him quietly but firmly. And Marcus, he became a quiet legend in the school. The dad who didn't just show up, but changed the game. But the story didn't. And there, months later, a package arrived at the Johnson house, an anonymous envelope with no return address. Inside was a USB drive with a single file, another video, this one from a different angle, showing a teacher watching the cafeteria. Incident and doing nothing. Amara's eyes widened as she watched it with Marcus. "Who sent this?" she whispered.